Well, this is Asher from the Fifth Direction, and it gives me a lot of pleasure today to drop into conversation with my beautiful brother, my dear friend Dingo Spender. So, thanks for being here, brother. First off,
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here.
mm, I think always a good place to start in these conversations is for me to just ask you, what's alive in your heart right now, coming towards the end of the year and moving into the new one?
What a great question. I've got a lot alive in my heart right now. It's the end of a huge year with lots of challenges and lots of wins and lots of losses. And it feels things are in a really expansive, reflective place. So it's a beautiful feeling in the heart, in my heart, to be able to reflect on the year from that real condor, wedge-tail eagle perspective on things. And so it feels really
Mm.
good. And to have navigated some really wild tracks and come through. So yeah, thanks for asking.
And you're sort of on the verge of heading off to the Woodford Festival, and I guess now you get to kind of close the year out with many of your tribe, your nearest and dearest. So how does that feel?
Yeah, it's so exciting. I mean, so during COVID, the project that I have with Danielle Caruana, also known as Mama Kin, who's based in WA, we obviously had to put that completely on hold for 2 years. So we weren't performing. We barely wrote. We sort of it just literally froze. And then the Thor began in February this year when we played our first show at Port Fairy Folk Festival. And it was literally 2 years to the day that we had played our last show, which was just like 3 days before lockdown. When there was I remember getting ready to go on stage. It was at a festival in Brunswick, and this like rumor of something. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's. And there was a mention about people all coming together that could be bad. And we were performing that night with a choir of like 30 people. So I was like, oh, is this not a good thing? But it was sort of too late. The wheels are in motion. We had no idea what was coming. And then fast forward to like 2 years to the day, Danielle and I stepped on stage at Port Fairy Folk Festival, kind of entirely different human beings. We had both been through a real sort of alchemizing during that period of time for very different personal reasons, but had beautifully come back together with this real sense of intention, like a renewed vigor for how important that work is that we do, which is to connect, to sing, to and to harness the power of the human voice with big choirs, and just the sense of how important music is for community, even more so. So people, yeah, it was a spiritual experience. It literally was a spiritual experience on stage for me, of just reflecting on it. And there was a beautiful grief, because I realized I hadn't had the chance to do that for 2 years. And then there was that joy of like, here I am doing it. And I think it blew out all of the stories around feeling jaded, or been doing live music for over 20 years and have had an ephemeral relationship of love-hate with being a performer. It's meant a lot of sacrifice and challenge for having a family. I have 2 kids and a former wife, that traveled through that whole journey of my career. And yeah, so a real sense again of like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is my heart's work. So yes, so it's amazing that was only February this year, to now be stepping into New Year's Eve with that family, with that tribe of people, with that bunch of family that I've been playing and performing with for years. And Woodford is one of those absolute heart explosion festivals. Just incredible, like-minded people, generally in the mud, going through some kind of like classic festival hardship that's illuminated by these moments of connection and performance. And then it goes back to like, now I'm camping in mud and there's muzzies everywhere, it's blinding hot, and I'm having to queue for an hour to get food, and all that kind of, it's the classic. It's actually one of the best places ever to practice the no mud, no mud, no lotus kind of practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. It is, yeah, Woodford's, yeah, always been one of the special ones, man. And I'm so
Mm.
glad you're getting an opportunity at the end of this, the end of what you've just spoken about there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
amazing kind of expansion
Yeah.
amidst the toils and the troubles. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, and I guess it leads me quite nicely because a couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of being with Dingo for a big chunk of time as we did the way course, the
Mm.
way course together, via the
Mm.
fifth direction. And I guess I wanted to kind of step back to that time a little bit and have a chat with you
Mm.
around that because, and let me say up front, brother, it was amazing. It was so amazing to have you there on that particular journey,
Yeah.
with me particularly because I remember the time, and without going into the details, like you and I were kind of involved in some interpersonal weavings at that stage,
Yeah.
and so when I saw you stepping in and wanting to be part of that container, I went through the whole gamut of emotions, and in the end, though, the ability to sit in a crucible like that
Mm.
with you, it kind of it just really it took everything to a whole new level for me personally. I honor that, and I honor you for having the courage to kind of step in. um
Thank you.
I feel like our friendship, brother, it's one that that's the nature of it. I think it'll always be forged in fire, and
Absolutely.
it just makes for such a constant deepening of our connection. So I just wanted to name that first off.
Oh, beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely spot on as well. It really was a forging in fire. And I think for both of us, it was a beautiful opportunity to recognize the duality of connection, and that it can be this and it can be this. They're not mutually exclusive. It can be that we're working through our own, as you eloquently said, interpersonal um, dynamics, and running perfectly, beautifully alongside it in absolute flow and alignment was this deepening and getting to know each other in a new way. Like for me, it was incredible to see you in the seat of, the teacher and the sharer and the storyteller and you know, the sense I got of you, like the librarian of all this incredible um, bodies of work that you have painstakingly curated and share so with such personal passion that kind of reanimates it for a whole new generation of people. And it was so great seeing that side of you and getting to know that side of you, as well as working through my own personal incredible challenges. And yeah, like it made them both better. It was like I probably wouldn't have gone as deep, um, because I would have been like, oh, it's an online course and we're in COVID and I'm going to turn up. But it was just like, who is this man and what is he sharing? What are his words and what are his actions and how do I meet him there and how do I step up? I think we were both just in admiration of just stepping up.
Mm.
And you're a tall fella and I'm a tall fella, and I think there was that sense of like standing tall amongst a tall tree. I was like, okay, I got to stand tall with this brother. This guy's a badass. Like, like he knows. I was like, your shit. And always like the detail. Like that was what I loved about you. Always followed through with such detail and such clarity in all your comms. I know I'm trying not to sound like I thoroughly endorse your course, but I don't want it to sound cheesy in any way. But I was always struck by how beautifully all your communication was with everyone and how much you followed through. So many times we'd maybe go over or open up a whole new portal of kind of work that you wanted to share, and it would be like, well, logistically we have to end the session, and you'd always be like, well, I can send some bits and pieces tomorrow. And that's such a common thing, especially in the Zoom era of COVID when everyone's kind of overworked. But sure enough, the very next morning, there would be a beautiful personal note from you, like really clearly, like lovingly detailed sharing, you know, and I really admire you for that. Yeah.
Wow, brother, thank you so much
Mm,
for those kind words.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah, it was a special group that went through. I mean, every group's special, but you know, I have some fond memories from the particular container that we kind of all created together.
mm.
And I'm just wondering, you know, if I was to ask you kind of what, you know, stepping out of that work and stepping into your life, it's been a couple of years now. Are there any kind of things that you hold, that you carry in your pocket, or the, you know, what are the learnings that kind of sit with you the most? Maybe that's a difficult question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I can speak to that. I mean, I think what really has stayed with me was the work that we went on and did in the shaman's way. Whether that was because that was the more recent body of work, I'm not sure, but I think there was some incredible work around the archetypes because I'd already done a bit of work around the Jungian archetypes. Um, but the way that you explained some of those concepts has stayed with me. You know, the tension point, the arc. Though I still live with them a lot, and um, I also really appreciated it was the first, to be honest, I was a little bit, I think like most people around that time, skeptical about how deep we could go in an online way because the men's work that I had done previous to this was all in person around a fire or away on a weekend or like with that really visceral skin to skin, brother to brother kind of thing. So I was a little bit dubious, but you managed to really hold us really strong. And so I think what really stuck with me was actually that brotherhood can be created anywhere. It's about the person holding the container, the people holding the container, I should say. So that was incredible. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
And just the ability to, you know, there's men that I know out there that I still haven't met in person that I know, you know, and that's a beautiful poem in itself, you know.
Yeah, I love that, brother. And what also, and I noted that I think it was earlier this year when you took your son on a kind of almost like a rites of passage initiation
Absolutely.
process right across Australia. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, you know, given we dive into that work a lot, at least, you know, how that looks and what it can look like. I'm wondering how much of how that played out with your son was kind of informed by the way process.
Oh, it was huge. It was very much um well, the other, yeah, I should say the other thing that really was strong in the way, even though I had done and started going down the four agreements kind of journey, what I loved about it was that was kind of like foundational. You have to kind of have this on your belt to step into this. So I reapproached it, obviously, with the context of like, oh, I need to be back up on this learning and this practice. And so, yeah, a lot of that trip was coming back to those four principles and really trying to impart them in my son on a daily way and listening to the book. And then, you know, I think that, you know, through the Warrior's Way, I really stepped into just a lot more stillness and just like really enjoying sometimes long periods of time driving for hours and hours and hours through the desert without saying anything and being absolutely comfortable and letting him kind of be the you know the branch of the tree in the wind and me just sort of staying like I'm on the road and I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere, but that sort of sense of stillness that I felt like I developed as well in that container, the Warrior's Way was
No,
there.
that's beautiful, man. Yeah, I love that. Just well, a kind of you know, the internal contract that we must make, you know, almost the warrior's contract there.
Yeah,
Which, you know, wrapped around the four agreements is a beautiful
yeah,
thing. And then the way you
exactly.
can kind of instill that learning in the way you are with your son without even saying anything.
That's right. Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't have to be a lecture or like, okay, we're gonna, you
yeah,
know, it's like,
yeah.
you know, they're looking at our actions, they're not listening to our words, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's incredible, and
Yeah,
that's a whole nother conversation,
it
my brother.
is.
Yeah, and I guess I'm kind of riffing off that idea that you were saying about building brotherhood.
Yeah.
even in the online context, and
Yeah.
automatically I was taken back to that end process that we did, the sort of sharing of gifts.
Yes.
And it was just, to me, it just blew me away, what each man, brought to the table on that occasion. It was quite incredible. And like, I don't think I'll ever forget you playing your beautiful song, the lake.
Yeah.
It was just so poignant and so precious and so perfect for the moment. And I
No.
remember, because I was immediately struck by um, well, at least what felt to me like references to Iron John,
Absolutely.
in terms of
Yeah.
story. And I remember, conversing with you afterwards, and that, obviously you weren't thinking about that when you wrote the song.
No, I
It
had
was,
no concept of anything like that, as a
yeah.
23-year-old when I wrote that song. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't it amazing? Like, it had, obviously just the lake element in and of
Yeah.
itself, but the idea of bucket work and the idea of,
Yeah.
the relationship with your father and all the grief and the joy and everything in between. And it
Yeah.
just, it just knocked me sideways, brother. So, and I know the other men, like, you could hear a pin drop when you finished that. It was just, it was
Oh, thank
incredible.
you.
So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I wish it had been in real life, like to sing that through the air, but
yeah.
lovely to hear that it still landed.
Oh, it did, man,
Yeah.
and that there's a version of that song which exists thanks to you, in our resources, and
Yeah.
I play it a fair bit, to be honest. It's just one of those things. It just it takes me back to that time together with all the
Yeah.
men, but
Yeah.
also that kind of specific, like knowing you and knowing your story. There's
Yeah.
just so many layers to it. I can really, I just, everything else just disappears when I play that song. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It can be done. It can be done. And we were also gifted on that particular, in that particular journey, because we had a bunch of guys that are kind of performers by profession. So it was kind of
Yeah,
like
there
a
was some
beautiful little
really
concert.
amazing people, Josh Peterman,
Mm.
who I strangely enough had know his sister quite well. And it took a few, maybe 3 or 4 weeks till I put it all together. And then yeah, and who was the other?
Well, Gareth did Hamlet, which was,
Gareth,
oh
of
my God,
course.
that was amazing.
That was amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a beautiful mix of I mean, from what I could sense, it was like a bit of a reflection of your inner world as well as the men that were drawn to you. You had the creative kind of men from more the corporate sort of world, creative corporate world, and then you had all these like interesting artists and just some poets in there as well, some real warrior poets when I
Mm.
think about it. So yeah, credit to you for kind of, creating a space for such a variety of men to really open up.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because like every time every time this happens, it feels like there's a particular flavor that runs through it,
Yeah.
And I can even see it building for the one that we've got starting at the end of January. There's a particular, there's a thread which weaves all these men together, even though they come from different professions and different backgrounds.
Mm.
There's a lot of diversity in there, but I look at them and I'm like, oh, I can see where the connecting piece is amongst all these men. So that gives me something to kind of, almost play with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great to hear you're doing one in January.
Yeah, no, it's going to be beautiful. So,
Yeah.
if I'd ask you, if you were speaking to a man just coming into this process, like let's say you met one of these men coming in at the end of January, what would
Mm.
you say to him in terms of, I don't know, whether it's words of preparation or just something?
Yeah, I would say make the space and commit. There is no excuse for not doing this work for men at this time, particularly, and just really recognize how privileged that we are to have someone like you in our community that's doing this work and offering it in an accessible way for men to not just sort of look at it as another notch on their belt on the self-development path. I think is another one as well. It's not a time to sort of rest on your laurels or, oh, look at me, I'm doing a course about masculinity or manhood. I think, keep humble in it and commit. That's what I'd say. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, brother. No, I love that. Well,
Mm.
listen, as we close off, I just want to honor you. I want to honor our friendship. It's just a beautiful thing which continues to surprise me with its depth and its breadth, and I'm loving the journey. So thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate you taking the time out. It's a busy time. You're getting ready to go and everything like that. So thank you again. And for those out there, if you don't know of Dingo's work, Dingo Spender, please look him up, man. This is musician, songwriter, storyteller, poet, breath work facilitator now, which another thing you managed to do during the
Yeah,
during the plague.
yeah, there's I've got some more offerings coming up soon, also in the sound healing space, with some work that I've been doing over the last 3 or 4 years up in Arnhem Land with some Yolnu crew, that I'm about to start offering with the Yadaki and a certain type of Yadaki healing, which I've just, anyway, I don't want to steal the limelight. This is your moment, but yeah, if men are interested in that kind of work, I'll send you a link.
Yeah, well, please do. I can put it in the notes here as well. But yeah,
Cool.
man, as an aside, if that's an offering that you could bring our way, we'd certainly love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful, brother.
All
Well,
right, man.
thank you again.
Thank you again, and season's greetings, and looking forward to seeing you in person. And any gathering, for the community, I look forward to. I know it's coming. It's not it's coming. So yeah, can't wait to be in person with some men in the community there.
Beautiful. Thanks, brother.
All right, man.